170 Seconds, an extract from the anthology Shades of the Unknown by John Wing. The Boeing 777-300 levelled off at 31,000 feet, having just taken off from Heathrow Airport. The sun gleamed off its metallic surface as it cruised above the milky white clouds, heading for John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, a flight that would take 7 hours. However, it would never reach its destination. 20 minutes after its departure from London, this mighty metal leviathan exploded without warning. All 550 lives, except for 4 people, were extinguished in the blink of an eye. It takes about 170 seconds to fall to your death from 31,000 feet. Siobhan Watson didn't know this, but this was the reality of her situation. She had been sitting in economy class, reading the latest Jack Reacher novel, when she was aware of the blonde air attendant talking to the man across the aisle from where she sat. He obviously didn't like flying. It was shortly after this that she heard a little girl remark about something strange on the wing. Siobhan looked up from her book and gazed across the aisle in the man's direction again, and could tell that he was very much agitated. In fact, he let out a startled gasp. Then the explosion happened. Siobhan Watson was flung out into the void and began her descent to what she thought was certain death. She taught the classics at Kent University, having attained degrees in archaeology and history at Birmingham University. She was smart, attractive, and relatively young at 42 years of age. All had been going exceedingly well for her until now. It would seem everything was coming to an end in the next 170 seconds. Siobhan wanted to scream, but the brutal Antarctic light cold prevented it. It was like being encased in ice. She nearly passed out from that alone, never mind the fear of plummeting to her inevitable end. This was not how she expected to die. There were so many things she wanted to do, not least of all her sister's wedding in 2 weeks. How ironic life was. As she hurtled down, twisting and turning as if she was on some crazy roller coaster ride, the stark cold having now lessened, land suddenly came into view. It signalled to her that death was getting nearer. Her fear induced her to shriek for help again and again. The futility of her panic caused her to cry. She didn't want to die like this. Just then, as she spun mercilessly around and around, she managed to catch sight of someone still strapped to their seat. The bounded passenger literally passed within earshot, almost slamming into her. As he whisked past her, rotating as wildly as she was, he heard his distressing screeches that soon faded to oblivion as he met his unavoidable demise only moments before her own. Siobhan closed her eyes, not daring to face death in the face. Something grabbed onto her. Whatever it was caused her pain. She opened her eyes and couldn't believe what she saw. A vulture had her in its sharp claws that pierced her skin through her thin clothing. But there was something odd about this bird. It was no ordinary winged creature. To Siobhan's astonishment, it had a female face. It was haggard and wrinkly, as if very old, and where there should have been a nose, it had a black, curved, pointed beak, although its hair, in contrast, was youthful, smooth and long, black as midnight. She noticed too its broad wings and swollen feathered belly. Siobhan was mortified by such a sight, yet she couldn't help but feel relief as it considerably slowed her deadly descent as it gripped her vulnerable body. Siobhan recognised instantly what held her, but it didn't make sense. As one who knew her Greek mythology inside out, what she saw shouldn't exist because what she witnessed was pure folklore. nothing more. But here, at this moment of her imminent death, it was real. She could see it, she could feel it as its talons punctured her skin like sharpened pencils, and she could smell its foul breath. All this proved that she was not dreaming. This bird-like creature was a harpy, as simple and straightforward as that. If it wasn't for her dire predicament, she would have been fascinated and ecstatic to have discovered such an inconceivable wonder. As it was, all she could manage was a feeble cry of help. Seemingly unaware of her plea of rescue, the harpy opened its mouth to reveal small but razor-sharp teeth. It bit into her neck. As it withdrew its teeth from her skin, Siobhan saw her own blood dripping from its deformed mouth. The last thing she saw was the creature take flight, heading off high into the sky, soon vanishing from sight. It was then that she became aware that she was falling no longer. She was on solid ground, alive. The harpy had saved her. She didn't know how long she lay on the ground. It must have been a good 5 minutes as she accepted that she was still breathing, feeling the hard surface beneath her. She managed to sit up and gaze around. Debris littered the field, parts of the plane scattered about, some of it on fire with smoke wafting into the sky. About 10 feet from her, part of the fuselage was burning furiously. As she studied the scene more, she saw the bodies strewn haphazardly. Some seemed perfectly normal, as if they were just asleep on the grass, while others were obviously damaged, contorted at impossible angles, or heads decapitated from their bodies. She noticed a dead man whose clothing was on fire. One corpse was split in half at the torso. Siobhan turned away in disgust and almost vomited. That's when she beheld a little girl's body, not more than 4 feet from her, her blank eyes staring at Siobhan. The child's null and void gape turned her stomach and bile spilled from her mouth. She stood with difficulty, swaying on her feet. She could feel blood trickling down her neck. It was where that hideous creature had bit her. And though she was disgusted by it, she knew that bird-like thing had saved her. She had to get out of here. Awkwardly and uncertainly, she shuffled forward as if in a daze. A bird's screech drew her attention to her right. 2 crows were pecking at a woman's bloody head. The skull moved involuntarily as they stabbed at it again and again, gulping down into their tiny beaks bits of skin and brain. This macabre feast willed her to move faster. She stepped over body after body, negotiating various metal parts of the downed Boeing 777. She nearly came to the end of the field when she tripped and fell. She collapsed on something soft. To her horror, she found herself staring into a blood-soaked face. She couldn't tell if it was male or female. All she could see was that where the nose should have been was an empty hole of blood, and a single eye looking up at her accusingly, as if it held her responsible for its death. That's when Siobhan Watson passed out. If you're intrigued how this story ends, it is available to download or purchase as a paperback from Amazon in my latest anthology, Shades of the Unknown.